He is a tough guy to get a hold of, and he's very graciously agreed to come here and talk. He is from what I have found out. I've heard of them before, but they are the oldest venture capital firm, not only in Singapore, but in all of Asia, Vertex Venture Holdings. And we are going to bring back up Darius Cheung, who was up here earlier talking, and he's going to be interviewing him. So let's bring Darius up to the stage and also give a warm round of applause for the group president and CEO of Vertex Venture Holdings, Kee Lock Chua, everybody. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back from lunch. I am very excited for this opportunity. I never get this chance to spend so much time with Kee Lock. So, like Richard was saying, I think maybe not many people know how long a history Vertex is and how and who Kee Lock is. Kee Lock is actually a very important person in Singapore's startup history. He actually helped nurture two $2 billion companies in Singapore. Do you guys know we have at least $2 billion companies in Singapore? The first one was Kee Lock started Media Ring, which at its peak was $1.5 billion. And right now he's still the president of Biosensors, which is a market cap of $2 billion. Oh, was? Okay, step down already. Sorry, outdated. But he was the president of Biosensors, which was a market cap of $2 billion. He also ran Vertex. Vertex has a long history of investing companies, including very famous companies like PayPal. And I'm very happy to have a chance to have a chat with Kee Lock. So I think we're very privileged. So Kee Lock, I want to start with asking, how do we build billion-dollar companies here in Asia, in Southeast Asia, in Singapore? What are the qualities that you see in them? Why aren't there more of them?
Well, this is a very tough question. I think in Asia, in theory, there's no lack of opportunity. Asia, this is where most of the populations are. We have a lot of people around here. The markets are big, and there's no lack of capital. So in theory, Asia, there's always possible to build the next billion-dollar company. But the challenge for Asia, I think, is probably then you say, then how come we have less of the Facebook and all these other companies? Then this different challenge. The first challenge, the access to capital is not as easy as US or some part of the world. And then I think, and in Asia, certain country, there's a lot of regulations that forbid or prevent startup companies from developing. So there's some of this so-called invisible barrier, but generally speaking, the markets are there. If you can somehow overcome it, it should be fine.
So you've been like first hand with $2 billion companies, and I'm sure in your investment history you've invested in a few too. Are there things that are qualitatively different about them? Is it the founders? Is it that they start off with a technology that's so hard to copy? What is it that really get them to keep going until they become a billion-dollar company?
Well, I think that the most important part recently, I think IDA people said I was asked to give them the presentation, and the question was asked, if you look back, what is the key success factor of a great company? And I actually have been thinking that question for a few days, and eventually I list down one page. Essentially, it's all about people. Right? People is essentially the entrepreneur or the CEO or the founder or the management. It's all about them. Because any startup that you do, whatever business plan you may have planned, once you start doing it, you realize that a lot of things that you assume was wrong. So the differentiate one successful one from the other failing one is that the ability to adapt, the ability to change, and the ability to change enough to adapt to the requirement. And then a lot of times it's also about technology. A lot of times about getting the right people and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's all about the team. The successful one is all about the team, the people who are able to somehow work together and execute it.
Maybe if I try to draw a parallel, right? Recently I had a chance to have lunch with Russell Simmons, who founded Yelp in the US. So I was asking him, what makes PayPal Mafia? Why is it that you have 12 of you and each one have a billion-dollar company, right? And he was saying that it was because of the PayPal experience that they all, from the day one when they wanted to start something, they wanted to start a billion-dollar company. And because of that, they select an opportunity that can afford a billion-dollar company.
No, I think
So is
he skipped one step. I think all these people who want to start the company, they a lot of time want to change something. I believe PayPal initially was about wanting to make the payment system much more efficient. And that was their so-called dream. And when they are doing it, they discover actually the market is bigger than what they thought. Then they say, hey, actually it's possible to get $1 billion. That's why don't we get $1 billion. But $1 billion is just a general guide. I'm sure you know PayPal is more than $1 billion. Yeah. So does it mean that we get $1 billion, you stop? No, right? Yeah. So I think that the question is always trying to, with the passion, even whatever company we may have done, is what are you trying to address here? What I'm trying to address is because I'm trying to address some pain point. And that pain point usually may be something very small, but it's enough pain today to certain people or certain market. And then when you start doing it, you realize actually the market is a lot bigger than what you thought. And that's when you say, oh, this is possibly a $1 billion opportunity. So why don't we just make it happen? So I think he skipped the first step. Yeah.
Okay. So you guys, so Media Ring, right? Let's go back in time. Media Ring, you guys started doing VoIP in the age of dial-up modems.
Yes.
So that was quite a visionary thing to do, and that was like 4 or 5 years before Skype even got started.
Yes.
And I mean, did you guys think of market size, or do you like, okay, this is damn cool, we got to try this?
Yeah. No, I think those days is those of us who know about those days, it was HTML and all this stuff. We all remember that dial modem, and it's very slow. And one of the things that in Asia that we have a lot of issues is that all the telecom providers are very much regulated. So as a result of regulation, all of them charge very high international phone call. So for those of you who used to live in Singapore 20 years ago, you know that to make a phone call from Singapore to US used to be $1 per minute. So we say, oh, this doesn't make sense because internet packets are free. So there's ought to be a better way to communicate. So we started off thinking about this issue as, hey, look, this is a possibility to allow people to communicate by voice using packetized technology. And that's how we evolve and develop. And then when we got into it, we started realizing, oh, it's very interesting. This is where adaptation is important. We realized actually whatever we are trying to do is not new. There are already 3 players in that market. One is Connect to Phone, Delta 3, and one more guy, I forgot the name. These 3 guys have different implementation. And right away, we study their implementation and say, oh, okay, their way is wrong because their way is trying to be a telco and fight a telecom. They're trying to be a telecom provider to compete against telecom provider. I said this is stupid because for you, the startup company is always about eating the incumbent's lunch. It's always trying to, you do something is because you're trying to eat somebody else's lunch, right? That's all, it's about history. That's how Apple eats somebody else's lunch, Nokia. Now somebody's eating Apple's lunch. So it's all about eating the incumbent's lunch, right? So that point in time, we look at it, Delta 3, we right away say it's wrong because their model is trying to be a telco provider. You cannot compete against an established player and trying to beat them. You had to compete against them to not beat them. So we changed the model and said, let's try to be a more internet company. And then, so what is a revenue model and all the stuff. So we came out with a different model. Eventually, then things move on and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe since we're talking about Media Ring, let's go down to the path of Media Ring. And then eventually, Media Ring went IPO. And then some years later, Skype came along. Then I always had this question: would Media Ring could have become Skype, or is there some reason why we didn't think of doing that? I know you were not with the company at that time. Yeah, so what would you do if you did if you were still there?
No, I think this is one of in look back. I think the few mistakes we made. We were on the right path, but then at that path we were burning a lot of cash, and then by then we already listed, and dot-com bubble just happened. So at that point in time, every analyst come to a meeting to say, how come you're still offering free phone-to-phone call? How come you can't make revenue out of this? It was damn stupid. And I think at that time, my other co-founder, he then became the only CEO, and he felt pressure. And I think he had no choice but he said, okay, crap. So he just cut the phone PC to PC voice service, and then and overnight 35 million users don't have a free phone call anymore, which I think that if you go back and look at Skype, that's the first day that they acquired 35 million in one day, maybe. Yeah? So those are the mistakes we make, because we were on the right path, and then we were responding to an analyst's demand. So one of the lessons learned is for startup company, of course, it's easy to say. Sometimes it's going public too early may be wrong. But of course, in Asia, there's not a lot of money available. Public listing seems to be the only way to raise a lot of money. So there's no choice also. Second issue, I think, and look back, sometimes I nowadays remind our young entrepreneur, I look back, is culture. I think I make a very big mistake together with my other founders. We did not build a culture. So when we get to the point of listing, what are we all about? So that is a very important question. So we do not know. So we lost our soul. We lost our reason, because we got there already. We are about providing free phone call, right? Is that all our culture? Does that define us? That seems to be the only thing that we reached there. So what else do we do? We already reached the highest peak. Why bother to continue? So that's another issue that is very important, that sometimes we did not spend enough time. Like one of the company that we invested in Taiwan, and recently I sit down with the entrepreneur after talking about what are his challenges, and then he asked me, what else you want to advise me? I said, you need to think about what does it mean to be this company. So I talked to it about culture, about you need to build a strong culture. That's how to hold your people together. When you become 100 million, 200 million, 500 million, a billion, that's what defines you. I mean, all of you know business school, we know the HP. HP, what was it? MBO, yeah, management by objective. Everybody knows that. But then you say, of course, I hope nobody's from HP here. One of the biggest destroyer of HP culture was California, in my opinion. If all of you go and look at the Fortune magazine, not her fault. When the board decided to recruit a CEO, they make a point that we must recruit somebody who's anti-HP. So they brought in somebody who would destroy the culture. Of course, the company will suffer for many years, lost direction. You believe in certain things, suddenly that's no longer right. Just like religion. I believe in this one, suddenly not applicable. What happened? Your company will be hitless for many years. So that's why HP for many years suffered and still suffering today. So HP has to, only way to successful, to go back to its roots, to its culture, whatever the culture may be that now.
So on the point of culture, right, for the benefit of the startups who are day to day just trying to survive, right? What is the best advice to them in terms of how do you build and nurture a culture at the same time?
Yeah, it's tough one, This one, I've honestly, it's all about. A few of you start a company. You must start a company for a reason, and you must have shared certain common belief and common commitments, common bonds. That should be that's what makes this thing work initially. So you don't need to sit down and think through this issue and be clear. This is it's not about money. A lot of times people say, it's about making $1 billion. If you ask them carefully, a lot of times that is the result of your hard work. That is not the reason. So you talk through it, a lot of times people will say, no, actually it's about creating something great. It's to be something, then you talk through it, eventually you come to that point that you all actually share something very similar. And maybe that define whether that is your culture or not. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a complex issue. I don't think I can finish in 10 minutes or so.
Okay. So going back to the point of building large companies, right? Vertex is one of the few later stage investment firms in Singapore.
Early stage, yeah.
Oh, okay, early stage as well. So in your portfolio, what are some of your favorite companies? Which one will become $1 billion? What are they doing that's different?
No, actually, all the company we invested, I must say, some young colleagues here, when they interview for a job, and they say, what is the biggest thing about our business? I say one of the hardest thing of business is that we are the fortune teller. Because every good VC firm have not seen what you are doing. If any VC who say they have seen it before, they are probably lying. Because nobody has seen what you are doing before. Because whatever you are doing is trying to do something different, trying to address certain market which doesn't exist, or trying to eat somebody's lunch in a different way. Obviously, nobody has seen it. So for all of us, whenever we start a company, we have after we overcome certain risks and merits concern, we ultimately will say, okay, this is the opportunity we invest. And to be honest, most companies after 2-3 years, we're still not very sure. Most of them still have its own issue because all of you are a startup company, things doesn't stop. Every day there's new issues crop up. Competition will come out, copycats will do. There's some government regulation will come out. All kinds of things are happening. So it's ever evolving. So it never stops. So the issue is, is always how do you, solve this thing one at a time and solve it and overcome it.
Thanks. So we are coming into the second half of the session. So I want to do this a little differently. I know it's after lunch, people are falling asleep, so I want you guys to be more interactive. I'm going to next ask Kee Lock about his investment strategy at Vertex, which I assume would be very interesting because there's this whole hoo-ha about Series A crunch and Series B crunch. So I would assume the entrepreneurs would be interested to find out more. Want you guys to think about what questions you might have and join me, put up your hand. We'll keep it interactive. If you have a question, I'll take a question. And meanwhile, I'll start with, so is there actually a Series A crunch here or in Asia, or is there actually a lot of money but you just not getting enough good deals?
In Singapore, you're talking about, right?
In Singapore, yeah.
Singapore, I think everybody's tired of me saying this. Singapore clearly is an example of, I guess, the two extremes. I think in a startup company, first you have incubation, then the seed stage, a Series A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, up to pre-IPO round. Singapore, there's no lack of money for pre-IPO round. A lot of people, if your company is profitable, huge revenue, everybody want to put money into a company. And then you guys, some of you are not familiar. Recently, there was a Greater China, REITs IPO in Singapore, right? It was offerings of 1 billion. The demand was 33 billion. So there's no lack of money for that kind of extreme. When company is doing well, everybody wants to give you money. And on the other extreme is the startup company. Thanks to NRF, National Research Foundation, great work. There's a lot of funding, a lot available, matching fund. I think there are 20 over companies are doing that. So many of these people are getting that 10, 100,000, 200,000, $1 million to sort of conceptualize the idea. But to build a company is more than $1 million. In fact, recently I was showing in my opinion, a typical company stages. To incubate a company is 500,000. To get to the next level, to what I call address the product and marketing risk, you need $1 million. To get to scale, if it works, you get to scale 20 million. Then to scale and stay ahead of your competitor is 50 million. So you add everything else, $100 million. So now Singapore's now we address a $500,000 issue. The 1 million is not issue. But the 20 million, 50 million is very hard. Because this is still not there yet. Because you are not profitable yet. Until you get to profitable, you still need to scale, right? So Singapore, because of the fact that we are surrounded by China and India, so if you are a VC, honestly, if you go and raise money, you say that I want to raise money to invest in China. People all say, I will give you money if so long you are good. If you say I want to invest money and invest in Singapore, Malaysia, they say get out of here. This is such a small market. Why you bother, right? Now today, of course, Indonesia is getting very hot because people are believing Indonesia could be the future, which I think they could be. But Indonesia has its own challenges, so people are beginning to dabble and put some small money. But there's not a lot of players. So because of lack of player, lack of money, so a lot of startup companies coming out from Series A, and then Series B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever that is in between, nobody's going to fund. So many of our startups, unfortunately, are facing this called valley of death, in my opinion. They all get to that point, their product looks make it workable, but they cannot scale, they have no money. So then what they have to do is they end up have to sell to somebody else, which is not a bad exit for founder, but then it's $10 million. So we have all these companies who I think if you scale, you build more, you probably can be something bigger and better. But they run out of money, run out of headrooms. They had to just sell and get out. So this is very sad for us.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Actually, my last company was a typical example of that.
I know.
Yeah, we spent 2 years, we couldn't raise any money.
Yeah, right. I know. I can tell you. We see a lot of these guys, and I look at them. I say, you guys are good plan. Sometimes we cannot fund them because we told them we are only game in town. So when my only game account is very scary. You cannot be the guy who fund $70 million. You will sign check until your hand shiver, you know.
Do you see that changing? I mean, we have Rakuten coming. We have several investors today in this room from overseas saying that we're interested in this region.
I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for Rakuten. I can't speak for all these other guys. I'm sure they are focusing on this sector. But it takes a lot more than that. You know? And then also a lot of times it's also about, like I say, you know, everything you do is new. So although we are supposed to be on your board and give you advice, frankly, we have not seen it before too. So a lot of times it's about talking to the issues. So sometimes one of the things that startup company lack the most is getting somebody to talk to you. You're like psychiatrist, no? Sometimes some of my more successful CEO, he will call. You say, Kee Lock, I'm thinking about this issue, what do you think? And usually I start out with the first point. Frankly, I've never seen it before. But if I were you, this is how I will analyze it. That's a fact, because I've not seen it before. Sometimes you say, what do you think about this market this way? I said, frankly, I've not seen it before. But, if I were you, this is how I analyze. This is how I think the possible solutions are. These are the 4 solutions. If I were you, these are the 4 solutions. And then the last sentence before I hang out, I said, now, this is where between me and you. I don't get paid, you get paid. So you figure out which one is the right option, you figure out. I said, deal with it and then move on. That's the key issue.
Okay, thanks. Let's take this chance to see if there are any questions from the floor. Anybody? Nobody wants money? Really? Nobody has a Series A, Series B problem? Okay, well, I'm curious. I want to find out. So I know one of these companies that you've funded twice, I think 2 rounds, is Rebonds.
3 rounds. Yeah.
3 rounds. Yeah. Wow, okay. So how do you think about that when you first funded them? Were you prepared to say, yeah, this is good and I could fund it all the way 3 rounds?
Yeah, you see, I think somebody was telling me this entrepreneur, I know him for 10 years.
Yeah.
First time he came and see me, we saw him, actually, I didn't fund his first company. Then second company, he came to see me. I actually told him it's a stupid company. You shouldn't have even started. But he don't believe me. He said that he lost his money. So then this is the third company he saw me. And then I keep looking. Eventually I said, okay, let's support you. So we give him a small amount of money to say, okay, we want to make sure that what we are thinking about is correct. So don't try to think too big. Only address 2 markets first, Singapore, Malaysia. Trying to demonstrate this one will work in these 2 markets. So he addressed the issue in these 2 markets. So when he was able to show some demonstration, then we say, okay, let's try to raise another round, which we help. We went to approach 2 foreign VC firms to invest the company, and then we brought in a lot of investment. Then we scaled to 5 countries. At the 5 countries, then we say, okay, now we're demonstrating, now we need to add more product, add more verticals, so now we need to differentiate, go ahead, now we need to innovate. So he started innovating in a certain way. Then we say, okay, now we need to raise more money. So we raised another round for another investor who came in as a lead investor. Then all of us put more money in the 3rd round. Then he scaled. And so today we are closing another round, and this is an even bigger round. And this time around is different. We say now you have skill, you have market, you have presence, you have user base. Now you have to stay ahead of the game, because there are all the copycats coming up now. Everybody's copying your model, but they don't know what you're doing. They're trying to copy your form. So now we have to figure out how to stay ahead of all of them. So now he's innovating in a certain way to stay ahead of all of them. So it's a lot of constant, staying ahead of everybody else. Yeah.
So I think for the benefit for the audience, which I think, especially for the foreign visitors, right? Rebonds started off primarily, correct me if I'm wrong,
sales,
luxury flash sales, kind of like Guild.
Yeah. No, not Guild. Bond Privé. Yeah.
Bond Privé. So, are there secret sauce of why they can do this successfully? You were saying that how do you stay ahead of the game?
Yeah. It's all about people, I guess. Now, the entrepreneur is quite, Samuel is quite, and his team is quite innovative. They're always trying to think through the issue. They try to always stay ahead. They try to figure out how to differentiate. They apply a lot of technology. Somebody just told me some authority in Singapore said that this company had no technology. I find it very interesting. How do you do all these things? How do you order user profile? How do you know all this data without technology? It's very interesting. So, but it's very easy to. You see, the problem is all of us always I underestimate a lot of people. Is that recently I went to give a talk. Some smart guy, Reborn's founder, was given presentation. After the presentation, this smart MBA, I think probably from one of those Harvard, Stanford, or whatever school, put out a hand and said, what you are doing is nothing new. At least I see about 10 people doing the same thing, recently copying what you are doing. So how can you compete against them? So the founder, of course, very humble. They say, well, we also had to innovate and stay ahead and everything else. So that's a good answer, right? So I, of course, being a cocky person like me, I had to take over the mic and say, look, do you know what is Tai Chi? All of you know what is Tai Chi, right? Okay, so for foreign friends doesn't know, this is a Chinese martial art. Next time you should go and say Tai Chi, T-A-I-C-H-I. It's very slow. A stroke goes something like this. It's very slow. It's very easy to imitate. All of you go and watch the YouTube, you will be Tai Chi master tomorrow. Because it's so easy. It's so easy to imitate. But the point is this. You cannot be a Tai Chi master until the Tai Chi master teach you the breathing technique. While you are doing all these things, there's certain tricks, certain things you're supposed to do in terms of breathing. There's certain weight shift you're supposed to do. Until somebody tells you this is the key essence of this stroke, you will never know. You follow the form, like me, looks very real, but actually I did not execute the key essence of the Tai Chi. So all these copycats all come, it's like you watch the thing, you follow a stroke, but you don't know where is essence, where is the weight shift, where is the breathing techniques, and many other things. So sometimes it's very frustrating for entrepreneurs when you start seeing people copying. Of course, don't underestimate any people copying you. You must always pay attention, and then after you say, okay, they didn't really understand it. It's okay. Then you move on. So, but you had a mixture. But sometimes people will say, there are 50 people copying you, everything else, but they don't understand it.
Okay, so for the benefit of the crowd, can you share what is one breathing technique of Reborn's? Is there one thing you can talk about?
So one very important thing is that we are trusted site. We tell the user our product is all genuine. Even today, we collect back some of the bags from the members. We will say that these bags are genuine. So how do you know it's genuine? How do you know the bag somebody returned to you is truly Louis Vuitton?
Okay.
In Asia, that's not possible. I'm sure all of you have gone to visit Taobao, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure if you go Taobao, you visit Taobao, probably Louis Vuitton company, when you go to Taobao and see, they probably have more products sold there than they ever produced in their lifetime in Louis Vuitton. So probably Louis Vuitton say, hey, this bag, I don't even have it. I don't even have this bag design before, probably. So how do you know tomorrow say that I have Louis Vuitton bag, give it to you, and you ask you to sell to other member? How do you know this person is giving you the real one?
Okay.
So this is a key issue, right? So you have to figure out a way to make sure it's real, because you are standing behind them and say, this is real. How do you make sure? It's not just say, because Kee Lock give it to me, it must be real. Because Kee Lock could be the biggest buyer of fake goods in my life, Okay. So you may not know. Okay. So how do you know? Somebody give you a Rolex. How do you know it's real?
Okay.
So this certificate can be fake also, by the way.
So at least, I assume you're not going to tell us how they actually tell it's not real, but I suppose it's good to at least share there are some real breathing techniques behind it that's magical. What about if you look at just the landscape today in terms of the deal flow, what are you seeing, what are you looking at as opportunities that you would invest in?
In Asia, I think the big theme for us is actually the mobile. Mobile is become very important. Mobile in terms of the software, in terms of application, in terms of all the enabling. I think it's very big in that sector. We believe that in the internet social, this whole evolution, there's still the beginning. So there's still a lot more business model need to be involving from that, because all of us now are spending a lot more time on on the mobile phone and the social network, Facebook and LinkedIn and all this stuff. So there's a lot more opportunities there that needs to be, they will evolve, come out of it. So, and then many other things. Yeah.
At what stage will you start looking at a company? I mean, practically speaking, is it that they must have proven customers, revenue? At what stage would they be the right time to come to you?
I guess at the stage we invest. No. I think there's no really strict criteria. It's all about understanding the sector. I don't think we always understand every sector. That's a problem. Because, like I mentioned before, because frankly we do not know, including an entrepreneur. Frankly, nobody knows. No? The only guys know. Actually, there's one person know. It's the future historian. He knows everything because he look back. He knows everything. Everybody else do not know. Yeah? So for us, sometimes it's very, very difficult. When we look at the thing, few things we do is we must make an assessment and make a judgment what we think is a trend. And that's the hardest part. So, in fact, I always tell my colleagues, it's between objective and being subjective. Because all of us are very subjective personality. We have certain things that we believe in. But then we also have to fit in all the objective data and understand where we think the things could be going. Do we believe that, for example, which everybody knows the answer, mobile phone will get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper for the next as many years that mobile phone exists? The answer is yes. So in this evolution of mobile phone getting cheaper and faster and quicker and more features, what does it mean in terms of opportunities? So the opportunities will be, for example, component. There will be certain components that has to be linked into the mobile phone, which we are looking at some of them. Another one is to, certain services. Because when things get cheaper, certain things that not used to be available on phone can be available today. So those are things that could happen. So we had to make that assessment, or I think the hardware is coming down. So in this curve, what is going to happen? If this curve continue, there's certain things going to happen. So let's invest along that curve, make sure that we get to that point. Yeah? So then if you happen to be having some business which are fitting into our team and our belief, then we will say, oh, this is probably will work. Let's try. Then we will invest.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to be open one last chance for anybody to ask questions on the floor. Yes, ma'am. The question is, how many startups do you invest in a year, and do you co-invest with other VCs?
We typically, because we invest in Pan-Asia, in China, India, and also on. So we typically in a year we invest maybe about 6, 7, 8 companies per year, but not just Singapore alone. Maybe Singapore 1, China maybe 3 or 4, India maybe 1, Taiwan maybe 1, so on and so forth. Korea could be 1. Hopefully 1 in Indonesia soon, one day. That's one. And we believe in working with people. One of the very important things that sometimes I hear some VC firms say, oh, we believe that we know everything. No, I don't think anybody knows everything. The only guy who knows everything is a historian. So nobody knows everything. So we actually like to work with people who share certain common belief and work together and argue through the case. But important thing is that the person must be able to share certain similar philosophy. That means you are believing in building companies, so on and so forth. We don't want the people who wants to invest today, tomorrow want to get out. Those people we don't want, because we want to build company to be sizable. So we will find people who share some similar philosophy to co-invest with us, and we have no issue to do this. In fact, all the companies we invest in, where we have good co-investors, usually the company works out very well. Because we may not be right, they may not be wrong. So we argue to the issue objectively, and ultimately we turn around and tell the CEO, that's where you got paid, we don't get paid. You figure out. So he had to figure out. He take in all the comments and figure out what is the correct strategy and execute it accordingly. And we may not be right, may not be wrong. Right?
Thanks. Any more questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I guess because you have a lot of experience to work with a startup and many, entrepreneur, can you point out the difference between the good startup and the great startup? Which one that you're gonna look for to choose to work with you? Other than you just mentioned about culture, you have to share the same philosophy. You have to have the good culture that can work along with you. Anything else that you are looking for?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that partly. The people is important. A good entrepreneur, I believe, has to be very arrogant, but have to listen. You know, it's contradiction. You also basket this guy, everything is contradiction. He sounds like a politician. No, it's not true. Because you have to be confident in yourself. Then you're arrogant, right? But at the same time, you have to listen. Because you are not always right. So you must listen, at the same time, you must be confident in yourself. So that's a very difficult thing to do. So a lot of times, it's very hard to do. So I sometimes, because I've seen it more, so sometimes I know how to do this better. I will, for example, one particular company, the founders is quite young. I will sit down with him, with another co-founder who is older than him. Because certain things I say to him, he may not like it. But the older guy will say, actually, Kee Lock, it's not wrong, you know. What the hell, no? I think you're wrong. And they will be arguing in front of me. I find it very interesting. But it's important because I know this dynamic. So I purposely also say, hey, whenever I request for a meeting, I always say, 2 of you must be around. They always say, what the hell, you know, this guy is damn horrible. You know, you only need to tell one. I said, no, must 2 be around. And one day, one of my colleagues asked me, say, why? I said, very simple. Because this young guy actually is executing it, but sometimes he doesn't listen. So it's very hard for me to say, listen. You know, like the video, whatever video, the political video. Listen. That is wrong. So I instead of me trying to tell him, listen, I just say, get the old guy to come together. Of course, I didn't say that way to him. I just say, hey, you all must together because 3 of us must talk. So sometimes at certain point it's very difficult. I say, no, this is absolutely stupid. Of course, I say it nicely. For example, this company, this same company, I shouldn't mention the name, now is doing very well, going by IPO. I shouldn't say because I'll be in trouble. 3 years ago, after they executed a plan very well, there's some regulation came out. The revenue become plateau, burning cash like crazy. So they continued the plan. So I saw the plan, I said, this is not going to work. They have $8 million left, they're burning $2 million per quarter, 3 more quarters, bye-bye. So I called for a conference call. I suggested that the other founder, old guy must be around, and the CFO must be around. And over the phone call, I just very straightforward said, look, we are shit. Then of course, you must start with some effect. We cannot say, oh, you guys, you must say, we are shit. So I told him that. So, what do you mean? I said, we are shit because at this kind of rate, we're burning $2 million per cash per quarter. 3 more quarters, we are out of the game. Of course, the guy said, no, Kee Lock, you're wrong because we are doing this and doing that. I said, no, we are shit because this is not going to change. We are shit. You have to ask yourself, what is alternative now? What do we do? You need to think about it. I said, I'm not a miracle worker. You have to figure out. If you believe in this one, you must quickly think about it, do something about it. So okay, they hang out phone. And then nothing happened for 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, he called me back for a conference call. He said, Kee Lock, you're right and you're wrong. It's okay, doesn't matter. You're right that we are in trouble, but we're not shit. Okay, fine. That's better. It's just language issue, right? So I said, okay, fine. So what do you do? He said, look, I think you're right. The market is disappearing in front of us. We have to shift the market now. We have been experimenting this small little shift for 6 months. We didn't tell you, which is fine. This is working. So I would like your permission to cut the headcount from this number to 50% of the headcount. Very drastic, you know. It's about 300 people will be lost job overnight. This is software development. 300 people will lose job. I said, okay. For me, it's easy, right? Because I'm not doing it. I said, okay, I agree. The next best thing that he said, I would like for your permission also to cut our salary by 30%. How many startup companies do this to you? They say, can I have permission to cut all our salary by 30%? Of course, I said, sure, go ahead. I won't say no, right? I mean, you have to understand us. We are venture capitalists. We always believe money is important. So I said, okay, please cut. So they cut, they shift the market. Wow, it works. Execute very well. Profitable very quickly after 12 months. And then it's growing like crazy now. And 1 year later, he got his CFO to call me. He said, Kee Lock, we would like to have your permission to restore the salary back to what we have cut so long ago, 30%. I said, no, I disagree. Wow, so the CFO was quite shocked. You know, oh, what, no, I disagree because we should restore plus 10%. Wow, so they said, wow, this guy is very interesting. I said, no, very important. You guys took sacrifice, so this is time we give it back. We shouldn't nickel and dime beyond. Give that 10% more back. So they, of course, they were happy. So now they know, this guy is actually quite fair, right? So now we execute. Recently, the market shifted on them slightly a bit. So they came and again said, Kee Lock, hey, we want to shift again. No? I said, okay. Well, after a while, you get used to it. Right? But this time, they think through the issue. They know market is changing, so they quickly take a hit of schedule. And then they are doing certain things to address the issue. And it's working out. So, for example, last year, their profit was 6 million. First half this year, they will do 6 million profit. US dollar. So this is where important that you have to be confident, but you must listen. Because he's confident what he's doing, but he's not very good in listening, but now he's better in listening. I think it's fine.
Thanks, Kee Lock. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up because of time, but before that, I want to ask one last question. You haven't needed to work for a long, long time. Why? You haven't needed to work for a long, long time, obviously. You're coming back to do all this work with entrepreneurs. What drives you? What is the motivation? Why do it? And what would you want to see in this ecosystem happen?
No, I believe, I think in Singapore especially, there's possible to build a few more great companies. 35 years ago, a lot of people don't remember this. 35 years ago, we don't have an airline. Today is a world-class airline called Singapore Airline. Many, many years ago, there's no such company called PSA. This is now one of the most dominant logistic company in the world. So it's possible to create great companies if you are, if you are passionate, you are determined to do this. Somehow along the way, because of all our great success, as you know, once you are more successful, you try not to win, you try not to lose. You know the difference, right? When you watch table tennis, soccer or table tennis, you watch after 2 minutes, you can know who will win or will lose, usually. Because one you can see, the guy is trying to win or the guy is trying not to lose. The one not to lose usually will end up losing because he try not to lose. Now, of course, except for some lucky situation, most cases is this way. The guy who want to win, he want to win. Doesn't matter what they do. They will tackle harder, they will run faster, the people will work very much harder. The people who do not want to lose, they tend to say, yeah, just get enough, make sure we don't lose, right? So those will show. So as Singapore, as I feel, we have done too many not to lose scenario. We don't want to lose. We don't want to win anymore. We don't want to lose anymore. So I'm hoping that by doing more of this startup, if we can create a few more want to win company, and then hopefully people will realize actually it's possible to win. Don't try not to lose. Then eventually we will have more great companies.
Wow, thanks. It's our privilege to have you with us today. Thank you very much for your time.